Hi, this is Mr. Max with some Golfer Mathematics. So I'm looking at a few questions here today, and it deals with sequences. Just a quick revision, all right? You'll find this in the ordinary level book, perhaps if you are following the extended syllabus, you might come across it. So it's for ordinary level, Cambridge stuff. You can go ahead and have a look at this question. So let's see what this question entails. All right, so it's geometric progression, but as I said, the whole question consists of quite a lot of questions that involves sequences. Right, just three small questions here. It can be confusing when you read this question at first. You can pause the video and try to write it down. Sanlam will pay out a certain amount, P. We don't know how much that amount is. This is what they're going to pay out at the end of the nth year from now. So that could be at the end of the 8th year, the 9th year, the 1st year, provided they will pay out that amount, which we don't know, which we must calculate, if the formula that you're going to get is that amount times 0.95 to the nth is invested today. So when you invest, for example, a certain amount, the question, like for instance, part A, how much will Sanlam pay this dollar? Here in this part, they say you get $300 rather at the end of the 10th year from now. So how much should he invest today in order for you to get that $300? Well, this is very simple. You just use the formula, you calculate, and you substitute. This is easy, straightforward stuff. I also want you to look at, it says at the end of a certain year, being 10. Look at the second part. It says show that to receive $300 at the end of each year, not at the end of a certain year, but each year for the next n years from now. The amount Carol must invest today is given by that formula, which is going to be like the nth term. Can be a little bit confusing, but you're going to see when I come. I'll try my level best to explain it in detail. This was the part that a lot of students struggled with. But see, basically, it means that you can actually work this out by substituting this 10 in the formula of part B, because how much must Carol invest now to receive 300 at the end of each year for the next 10 years? Again, I'm going to explain this also using a longer way so that you can see exactly what does it mean. Okay, so if you think we're ready, let's give it a go. Right, so Part A says to receive 300 at the end of the 10th year from now, Pete must invest 300 times 0.95 raised to the power of 10. If you look at this formula here, it kind of looks like, I don't know if you know, your nth term of a GP. It kind of looks like A r raised to the power n minus 1. I don't know if you're used to this formula or if you know this particular formula. Okay, this particular formula allows us to find the nth term. In this case, what will be the value? Okay, how much must he invest today in order for him to get the 300? But anyway, let's not use that formula. We'll get back to break it down in a proper way. Okay, right, so there you just simply go ahead and you substitute in that formula and you should have an answer. This is just with 1 mark. There's nothing here to cry about. But remember this total, 179.62. I'm going to use that again later to explain the longer way. Here comes the problem. And I've underlined. Here it says at the end of a certain year. Good. So if it was 9th, then I will put 9 here. If it was 8, I'll put 8 there. Okay. So in case it means how much should you invest today if you want 300 at the end of those number of years? But this question says that you're supposed to show that he will receive 300 at the end of each year for the next n years from now. The amount that he must invest today is this given by this formula. So what does it mean? Let's take the first year. To get 300 at the end of the first year, you must invest, substitute 1 into that formula, 285. That means if he invests 285, he's going to get about $300 at the end of the first year. So to get 300 at the end of the second year, you must invest less than that. And you can see that your ratio here is a fraction. That means your sequence is going to decrease. So we're also going to explain later on exactly so you can see how I break it down. At the end of the third year, in order for him to receive 300, how much should he invest today? Well, he has to invest, substitute into that formula, he has to invest something less than that. It makes sense that you should invest lesser if you want to get 300 at the end of those number of years, okay, or the third year or the fourth year. And maybe we do one more. At the end of the fourth year, you must invest 244 in order for you to get 300 at the end of that year. I hope you understand that. So this gives rise to a particular formula or a sequence. So let's have a look at it. Then obviously we're given that formula then at the end of the nth year. This is what we need to prove. Okay, so to get 300 at the end of the first year, you must invest $285. Now that means this is the formula like for compound interest. I hope you understand. The P is normally here. This is the amount that you are supposed to invest plus 1 and the 5%. Remember you have got 95, 0.95 is like 95 over 100. So what is left there? So it increases by 5%. You're getting $300. So if the person goes and he invests 285 today, at the end of that year, he's going to get 300. But if the person decides, okay, look, let me go to invest 300 and I want to see, invest a certain amount, $270 like we determined first. How much do you get after the end, or at the end, not after, but at the end of the second year? So if you are investing $270.75, you're going to get $300 as well. So the less you invest at the end of the second year, this is what you're going to get. So if you go for the third year, which we know this formula from 257.25 from 2125 from before, you invest less. But at the end of the third year, if you invest that money, you are going to get about 300. Can you see how it goes? At the end of the fourth year, what was the fourth term? It was at 244.35, so on and so on. Well, if you invest that, then you are going to get 300 at the end of the fourth year. So this is basically what our 300 is saying. So I just brought the slide in. It's not really a requirement for what we need to do. Right, so the first term, as we calculated, was 285. The second term was 270.75. The third term was 257.2125. The fourth term was 244.351875. So it goes on and on. So the nth term will be given by this particular formula here. 300 times 0.95 raised to n, where n is the number of years. Like looking at this as a formula, the formula then becomes, we have to check is it a GP or AP, but you will realize it's a GP. If you take the second term divided by the first term, you get 0.95. What if we take the third term divide by the second term, we also get the same thing. So that means there's a common ratio. So therefore, this is a geometric sequence with the first term equals to 285 and the R equals to 0.95. And when you are dealing with a geometric sequence and your ratio is a fraction that is less obviously than 1 between, as you can see, in this case, then your sequence is going to decrease. Right. So when we substitute the values in this formula, this is the formula for the sum of the number of terms, because we need to come up with a formula. If we need to find the sum of the terms, if we add 285 plus that, plus that, plus that, what is the general formula? Is it going to give us this? That's basically what that question entails. Well, it definitely gives you that. If you substitute, and this is like the 285 here, if you substitute, you eventually end up, and you have proven that. Okay, so part C basically is just, as I said, you just use that formula. Now it says how much must Carol invest now to receive 300 at the end of each year for the next 10 years. It could be a little bit confusing if you read it like that. But what does it mean? So in the next slide, I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. But what I said for this particular question, you just substitute your answer you got in part B, and then you get 22 or $2,287 and about 20 cents there. Right. So this can be answered, but are you understanding this statement? How much must Carol invest now to receive 300 at the end of each year for the next 10 years? Basically, it asks you what will the sum of all of those terms add up to. So I've done it just to break it down for you. If you look at it, this is what we had. So I have the first 5 terms from before we end up to term 4. So I've calculated term 5. Now I went all the way up to term 10. Now, you remember 179.62 like I said. So what that part C is asking you is, in order for the person to get 300 out of the first term, 300 after, this is what he must invest to get 300, like I showed you before. In the third year, this is what he must invest to get 300 at the end of the third year. If he wants, how much should he invest to get 300 at the end of the fourth year, and so on. You realize the less he invest, that's what they get. But what the question is asking basically, that part C is, how much will all of these add up to in order for you to get 300 every year? Well, if you go and take your calculator, and I did that, but take your calculator, for example, and add all those blue things together, you get what we got in the previous answer. That is why it is not necessary for you to do all of this. And this brings you to the same answer that we had in part C. Right, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and also hit me with some questions and I'll try my level best to explain them to you. Right, I hope that this was a bit helpful. I know that a few learners came to me or they asked me to explain that stuff. Look at it again, and please remember, revision, practice makes perfect. Now, because you're running out of time for your exams, my advice to you would be, look at your books if you have textbooks and only look at the revision sets or the examination type questions at the end of each chapter, and then you do those because you're running out of time. When you realize you don't understand a topic so well, then you can go into the topic and try to go and find those individual exercises so that you can just work on your confidence. Another thing which is most important is work out question papers now. Previous year's question papers. If you are a grade 10 and 11 learner, grade 11 learner doing ordinary level, the past question papers of grade 12, the ordinary level that is extended, will be helpful to you, because the only topics that were added was just Venn diagrams and matrices, to be frank with you. Otherwise, the work is exactly the same as it was for grade 12 learners doing the old syllabus extended level. So those question papers also be very helpful. And have a look at the channel, because I also worked out grade 11 papers that was written last year in 2020. It's worked out. Have a look at that. Download them so that you can follow and work through them. I wish you all the best.